Hey folks, just want to let you know that Crimecast is sponsored in part by our good friends John Ballinger and Douglas Ford. They're the host of a podcast called First Lead You. It's a podcast centered around leadership, the absence of leadership, how to develop leadership, and the consequences. What happens when you don't have strong leadership in our businesses, in our politics, and in our families? So tune in, your favorite podcast platform. You can find them on Facebook as well. John Ballinger and Douglas Ford discussing leadership and life. First Lead You podcast.
I love when things are described as really good, really creepy. So, happy Halloween.
110710. Yes, sir. And they have the car stopped at 10th and Grant. You might go by there first. 323 to 584.
Welcome to Crimecast, a podcast centered around policing and the community. Cold cases, active cases, safety and insights, all wrapped in stories and entertainment. Plus, we're going to review infamous cases, talk with authors, other podcast hosts, and former and current officers and detectives. Hosted by Clint Powell and police veteran David Roddy. Get ready. Let's Crimecast. What's up, David Roddy?
Not much, brother. You doing all right?
I was late, a little bit late.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know.
I wasn't going to bring it up.
I want to say I like your theory, though. I got here instead of 15 minutes early, I got here like at 12 minutes early. But I am, like in college, I'm like a professor, which means you're obligated to stay for 15 minutes past the top of the hour.
That was not the point of that story.
That's what I took from it is I am a doctor. That's what
Dr. Clint.
Yep.
Thank you. You know what? From now on, I'd like for you to refer me.
That's Dr. Clint.
Yeah, Chief and the Doctor.
The proctologist.
The proctologist. Wow.
He's familiar with what?
Wait a minute.
He's familiar
Don't I
with
get to
what?
pick my medical field?
No.
Dr. Clint's medicine show.
This
Yeah,
is
exactly.
socialism. I've been assigned a practice, and I do not want that. I'm not a doctor. I was late. My bad. We have a good guest. We had her originally scheduled when we first launched this thing, and schedules kind of got wonky, and we were learning what we were doing. And not that we know any better now, but
No.
finally got her on. She wrote a book called The Corpsewood Manor Murders in North Georgia. Amy, and make sure I say your name correctly. How do you say the last name?
Petulla.
Petulla. You've been on my personal podcast.
I have.
At least twice. Once about the book, and then the other one about the Chattanooga Ghost Tours.
Right, exactly.
Let's do some business up front. Tell everybody how to find out about Chattanooga Ghost Tours and what you do, and then we're jumping into this book.
Okay. ChattanoogaGhostTours.com is the best place to find it. People can buy tickets there, read about the different tours we have, see some of our ghost pictures there. Make sure you put it in the address bar and not the search bar, because there's an out-of-state chain that pretends to be us and advertises using our name. But
Really?
you'll see a female ghost on the front page, you'll know it's us.
And if you start looking at contacts and stuff and don't see Amy's name, holler at me. I'll give you her contact. I called your phone the other day, and it's actually you answer the phone at the Chattanooga Ghost Tours. I thought you'd have help. You're like, Chattanooga Ghost Tours? I'm like, wow.
No, I used to let other people do it, but they just didn't do it as good as me, so now I do it.
This is like, I was married for 21 years. This is like, hey, can you load the dishwasher? And then not that way. Let me do it the way that it's supposed to be done. Well, first of all, let's do some background on this. I want to know why you wanted to write this book. And I think that kind of starts off in your background on what you did before Chattanooga Ghost Tours. You used to be in law enforcement at some point, right?
I practiced law for 20 years. I started out in the DA's office, Lookout Mountain Judicial Circuit, which is where this case happened, back in 86, long time ago.
Yeah.
And then I went to private practice for about 20 years. And then when I retired from practicing law, that's when I started Chattanooga Ghost Tours. This book, I first heard about the story back when I was practicing law. But when I started to the ghost tours, I started hearing about it from an entirely different angle. So it was a perfect book to write.
All right, so different angle. We'll get into the details. What was it? Is the place haunted? Is the area, let's just do the big question first. Is the area that used to be this location, is it haunted?
I think it used to have something that hung around there. I think that the two guys, the victims in this, may still be there, but I think it's a lot more peaceful than it used to be. I think it used to be a lot more active and so maybe something not as nice that was there before. But I think, now it's a very peaceful place. But I do think, they hang around there just to supervise.
Okay, I don't like that at all. I was fine with peaceful and these to supervise. How about I just not go?
You want me to tell you the story, the biggest story about that? My personal.
No, we don't like
with
stories on the podcast at all. Yes, tell us the story, and then we're going to get details. Go for it.
Okay, so when I originally finished the book, sent it into my publisher, I was all knotted up because I'd been sitting there at a computer for months. Went to get a massage. I had this young guy. And I'm chatting with him, I said, oh, yeah, I just finished this book. It's about these two guys that got murdered, in Trion, Georgia. He's like, wait, I think I might know something about that. Didn't that happen a long time ago? I said, yeah, it happened back in 82. And he said, and there were a couple of gay guys that got killed. I said, yeah. He said, well, I went out there when I was in high school. It used to be a big place for high school kids to go on a dare.
Right,
know?
yeah.
He said, I went out with my buddies, and now to get to this place, you have to go to the end, to the road literally ends, and then drive down a dirt road for a mile, find the right turn off, and find the right pull off, and then hike through the woods for half a mile to get there. But he said, so, they went, there's only room for one car right there. He said he got there, nobody else around, just their only car there.
Right.
Go out to the woods. Here's these two raggedy looking kind of guys, he said, sitting in lawn chairs right in the middle of where like the dining room would have been. And he said they were real nice, but they were a little bit odd. He said they told him about what had happened there, the murders, and said they came back there every year at the same day. And I said, was this in December? He said, well, I don't know. It was cold though. And he said, so he and his buddies went and hiked through the woods. When they come back, the guys are gone. And like I said, these are guys that have no car, and it would have taken a lot to get back out there without a car.
Right.
But it just sounded too familiar. So I asked him, well, what they look like? And he said, well, one of them was big and one of them was smaller. And I said, well, was the big guy dark haired and the smaller guy blonde? And he said, yeah. And I had a picture in my car, which I thought was Joey and Dr. Scudder. Mm-hmm. Turned out it was Dr. Scudder, but it was some other guy in there. So I brought the picture in and I showed it to him, and his eyes got big and his jaw dropped. And he's like, now, the big guy there, I don't know who he is, but the little guy with blonde hair, that's the guy that we saw. He's even wearing the same kind of clothes. And he didn't know he was telling me a ghost story because he didn't know who that was in the picture. Oh. So that's why I believe that, because like I said, he thought he's just telling me about these weird guys in the middle of the woods.
That's a big no for me. We used to go out to the Snodgrass Hill and Chickamauga or something like that at the battlefield. No, thank you. I'm done. I don't know what I was even thinking back then, whether you believe it or not.
They don't let you get out of your car at nighttime in the battlefield anymore.
Really?
Park rangers had enough, I guess, mischief going on there. They said no
Idiots
more of that. Yeah,
like
some of
I
that.
was about to say,
Did you ever do that?
I would never admit that.
Statute of limitations stuff. You've got a reputation to uphold. Okay, so let's just jump straight into the book, and we'll kind of ask some questions along the way. Give us the setup of, first of all, who are these two guys, right? Mm-hmm. And we'll eventually get to their demise, but who are these two guys, and why did they get down to North Georgia? How did they get there? Let's start that part.
Okay. Charles Scudder was a professor at Loyola University of Pharmacology. He was also the co-director of the Institute for the Study of Mind, Drugs, and Behavior. So you can guess what they were studying. Joey Odom was his friend, sort of companion, not like a husband kind of sense, but they stayed together for 20 years, and he cooked and that sort of thing.
Right.
Joey was very different from Charles. He was not the intellectual type. Some people said he was kind of fey, but they had been in Chicago, and Scudder got fed up with the whole university system, whatever, tired of dealing with all these snotty little kids, university kids. And so he retired on his 50th birthday, and they looked for an area where they could build their castle in the middle of the national forest. And that's how they found it here in Trion, Georgia. That's how they came to be here.
And they wanted to always build a castle somewhere? Was the castle that as far as you know, what they wanted?
Well, they called it a manor. So, a lot of people call it a castle. But yeah, they wanted to hand build their own, even though they had no construction experience whatsoever. They wanted to hand build themselves a little, place in the middle of the woods that they could build exactly the way they wanted to. Yeah, I've seen a lot of the pictures from there.
Is it a castle?
well, it's an oblong-shaped, small structure. I think total footage was like 1,600 between two floors.
Really?
It was very small.
Yeah.
But you know, it didn't have turrets or anything like that. But it was definitely a different sort of place.
It's not the typical construction for the North Georgia area.
It is definitely not,
So-
and especially with the big 4 inverted pentagrams on the chimney. Yeah, you don't see
Well,
that
now
around
we're
too much.
now we're scooting ahead of the story because there's more to it. So real quick though, what made them pick North Georgia? Was that just random?
That was the place they found a piece of property that was entirely surrounded by the National Forest.
okay.
So that's how they wound up there. You don't
He made
find
a
too many of
reference at
those.
some point, if I'm not mistaken, where they wanted to live somewhere that actually had all 4 seasons, but not brutal winters. Mm-hmm. So it was, I guess Georgia fits that bill.
It did, but when they moved down there,
It was like
the
in the
day
blizzard,
they
yeah.
it was the day it snowed in Miami. It was like a major blizzard,
Uh-oh.
you know, and they couldn't find the place. Had to sleep in their Jeep.
It's called foreshadowing.
Yep,
Just
yep.
letting you know that.
All right, so let's just get some basics out of the way. 2 gay guys, right? Which is
Right.
fine. Not as fine back in the 70s and 80s, right? There was a stigma that came along with that, but they want to get out of the rat race, and I've got you a water in case you want one.
Thank you.
They're out of the rat race. They get to Trion, Georgia, surrounded by all the woods. They build this lovely, weird manor, castle, whatever you want to call it. And then you alluded to it, they had pentagrams on it because, and before they left too, they're in the Church of Satan. Is that what it was?
Charles was. Now,
Okay.
now there are some people that will say, well, he never actually joined up. He just corresponded with the guy, but he didn't ever pay the money.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he followed that. Charles was one of these people that was fascinated with all kinds of information and intellectual subjects or what. There are a lot of intellectuals in the Church of Satan, and is a very hedonistic type of group, and that was right up his alley.
Well, 2 things. One, you brought it up, Roddy, before we came on. It's they don't believe in Satan or God. It's basically a thumb in their nose at all deities of any kind, basically.
Right.
And am I saying that right?
Yeah, they don't believe in God or Satan. Yeah, it was just sort of thumb in their nose at Christianity is how they came up with the name.
It's anarchy and agnosticism. So it's not a belief
And
in
hedonism.
and hedonism. So we were talking about earlier. A lot of the current train of thought is, I think the saying that goes along with some individuals that have been connected or touted to be involved with the Church of Satan. It's do as you will, do what you will. So it is a very self-serving, absolute, if it feels good, do it kind of mentality.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily Satan-centered. It's actually more self-centered. If that's an easy enough explanation to it.
Well, I missed a little component of this. So because there's so many moving parts on this thing, before they get to Trion, ma'am, this professor who was doing studies on mind-altering things, he was working with a grant he got from the government, correct?
I assume it was a grant. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean they were doing studies on drugs. He was never. You'll never see it said that Loyola was part of the MK
Well, I read
Ultra
articles.
study, but I mean, they had a lot of LSD. They were obviously studying it, so they had some kind of government money, and it was definitely government drugs.
Right.
It's marked.
So
as
what did
such.
he bring with him to Tron? To where I'm getting, but do you remember what? Because we were talking
Sure.
about it.
3 tubes of LSD with 4,000 doses each.
12,000 doses of
doses.
LSD and 2 human skulls, by the way.
Right.
Now it's a
right.
party.
Now
That's really all you need. Now it's a party.
And 2 huge mastiffs in the Jeep with them.
Okay, and we're going to go down this road of weird, odd stuff. What were the names of the mastiffs? Do you remember?
Beelzebub and Arsanath.
Okay, I know Beelzebub. I'm supposed to stay away from that one. I've been told that when I was young. What's the other one's name? What does it reference to?
Arsanath, who's some writer who writes. Now the name escapes me.
But it has,
writes a lot of
yeah.
Satan kind of stuff, and she's supposed to be like a female demon.
Okay, I also heard, this is why I love these things, because there's also rumors and rumors of rumors, that they actually tried to summon up a real demon to help protect the grounds. Have you heard that at all?
Yeah. Mark Foltz was one of the people that I talked to for writing the book. Mark is a spiritualist and psychic and whatnot, and he knew a lot of folks from the Church of Satan, and he's the one who told me that his friends in the Church of Satan said that Charles was a member as well.
Okay.
And like I said, I did confirm later on that he did correspond with him. He had checks written to him
Where he was.
He wrote checks to the Church of Satan. That was part of what's found in the
Apparently, then there is money paid.
Yeah,
then.
yeah, some, yeah.
It's a clue.
yeah, that's.
You're cracking the code over here, dude.
Train investigator. To your left, buddy. I've got this.
Kind of like I said, the ones who say, 12,000 doses of LSD, just a souvenir. No, I don't think so. Writing checks to the Church of Satan, yeah, I think there's a connection there.
A little bit.
All right, so I'm so tempted to get the cart ahead of the horse. So they get to Trion, they build their house.
Mm-hmm.
What ensues? What kind of life do they build for themselves in the middle of North Georgia?
Well, they got there. Most people will say they got there in 76, but I think it was actually January of 77, very early 77 that they got there, because that's when that big blizzard happened. And it took them, first they got the first story under cover. They built themselves kind of a shack to live in, before that. Finally got the house completed, and they had a great life there for until 82, when they were murdered.
It was great until it was not great. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Until it wasn't life anymore.
Right.
But yeah, they were very into being self-sufficient. There's no electricity, no running water, or anything like that there. So they had the house was 3 layers of brick thick with air between for insulation reasons. They would heat it with wood or whatever.
But they had no building.
Use lamps for light.
You said that.
No building experience whatsoever. They bought one of those. A gas-powered refrigerator. I guess you didn't have to have electricity, or icebox or whatever. Started to dig themselves a pond out there, and they had a well that they got the water from.
Wow.
Built an outhouse, so they had they raised crops, raised chickens.
Did they need money? How were they making money? Or did they have a stipend somewhere? Or
he had money that he'd had a small inheritance and had invested it, and I think he got about $200 a month interest and whatnot from that, and that's what they lived on money-wise. And they put it all in the bank. The guys who killed him thought they were going to, hit it rich or whatever. They would write a check even if they were buying an Eskimo pie, for 50 cents or whatever.
Really?
Back then it's probably 10 cents, but yeah.
They write checks for everything. Okay.
Yep, all of it was in the bank.
All right, so and we're going to walk through the timeline. Then I get to say rumors and more rumors that I've heard. But so when does it take a turn, and how does it start morphing into not such a good life? Because it wasn't. I mean, they had a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like there was little, House on the Prairie.
Right.
So,
right. Well,
True.
I'm a thinker.
There you go. There you go. Well, Charles was kind of a contradiction in terms sometimes. He wanted to get away from the rat race, but he moves to Trion, Georgia, which is a tiny little town of 1,700 in, the rural South. And he said it was to get away from everybody. He was a really sociable guy. So anytime anybody would come by, he would chat with them or whatever. He would not invite them into the manor. He would invite them into the chicken house, which, you're probably going to get into the chicken house in a little bit. But
do you know about the chicken house, Roddy?
I'm very familiar with it. No,
okay.
From what I've read.
Okay.
Yeah. And he would visit with him there. He made his own homemade wine. Apparently, he made wine out of everything. I think,
including LSD.
Broccoli. Well,
just throwing that out there.
No, actually,
this is the best wine I've ever had.
Exactly.
He did not drug anybody that way. They didn't know it, so there wasn't drugs in the wine. That was something people did voluntarily. But yeah, I mean, he would share his wine. He would share, from what I understand, share his drugs. And like I said, I think I heard he made wine out of broccoli or something. One of the guys I was talking to said
not all people to drink wine.
Said not all that wine was very good.
Vegan wine, I'm out. Kale wine is next, ladies and gentlemen.
The fruit wine was good stuff, but the others. But it was also supposed to be very strong.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he'd socialize with people, and that's how he wound up meeting these guys. Avery Brock, Kenneth Avery Brock. Some people call him Kenneth. Some people call him Avery. Was 17 years old at the time, was hunting out in the woods, and he ran across them, and they invited him in, and, like I said, shared wine with them, chit-chatted. Eventually, they had, I think, a couple of consensual sexual encounters.
Right.
But then later on, Kenneth's roommate was this Tony West, the other murderer, who was much older. He was like 40s. Mm-hmm. And when Kenneth told him about that, the guy, of course, made fun. He's this big old criminal redneck. He had a criminal past. He was just a bad guy.
Okay.
And he made fun of him or whatever, to the point that Kenneth managed to work it around in his mind about how these guys had taken advantage of him. They had not taken advantage of him at all. It was totally, like I said, consensual, but he didn't want to feel like,
Made
look
fun
bad
of him,
look bad in his roommate's eyes. So so then that's how it came about. Tony wanted the money, Kenneth wanted revenge. So that's how they came up with this murder plot.
Okay, we'll talk about the murder in a minute, but let's just address the chicken house. Again, this is going to be, it's a weird conversation anyway. First floor is chickens.
Right, exactly.
Normal.
Yep.
Hey, look, chickens.
In a chicken house.
As you would expect, sir. What's on the second floor, Amy?
The second floor was canned goods, but also some pornography,
Okay.
they said.
Wait a minute. So here's where I made the mistake of this, and you'll love this.
There's 3 floors.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting to the third floor. So I'm refreshing myself on this case, right? So Google will allow me to, hey, Google, read this article to me. So, and look at me, it popped right up. It's about to read the article. So I'm driving down the road, and it's got this very robotic voice reading the article, and it goes, on the second floor, they kept their canned goods and pornography. Just like, what good country farm doesn't have the second floor of the barn?
My favorite restaurant, Roscoe's Chicken and Porn. I mean, it's right there. It's all marketing.
Is it Ducktown where they got the pharmacy and the gun store right next to?
I've seen, it's great.
Yeah.
Drugs and guns.
Drugs
Stop
and
here.
guns.
Drugs and
Or you
guns.
can over
McKaysville.
Or chicken and porn.
McKaysville, thank
Okay,
you.
Yep.
All right, so there's the second floor. Now the third floor, that's where it gets, believe it or not, a little more weird.
Yeah. The third floor had no furniture. It was covered in pink shag carpet. It was the pink room. That's what people call it, the pink room. Pink shag carpet, lit by kerosene lamps, had pink sheets, pink mattresses on the floor. That was the furniture, covered with sheets, and that's where they entertained.
Pre-black light, by the way.
Yeah. Yes. I think, I got to be honest, I feel like that's probably where COVID started. It just took a while to kind of get released. I feel like this room is just full of COVID-esque stuff. Yep.
I don't think COVID had anything to do with sex.
Well, you're bringing in people from the wood. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think they were living the life they wanted to live.
They were.
That's
They absolutely were. Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered the 3 floors. Now we're past that. Now, real quick, did they have other people coming out there too? Were there people making journeys that found them out there? And I don't mean just for the sex, just maybe it was for the drugs or just for the company.
Yeah, from what I had one fellow who had talked to the local motorcycle gang folks there, actually another person in your field. And he said, yes, that some of the motorcycle gang folks would come out there for the drugs. Other people, he corresponded with a lot of prisoners, and you'd always say, yeah, come on by, whatever. So, and some of the correspondence was just regular, correspondence. Some of it was sexual.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who'd heard about the place kind of had an open invitation to come by and visit and have some wine or whatever.
But it wasn't locals, or was it?
A lot of the local teenagers, from what I hear, and you don't get a lot of documentation or people coming forward with that. But yeah, some of the local teenagers at least would drop by, and I'm sure there were some. The motorcycle gang folks were locals. I'm sure there were some other locals, but usually they were going to be kind of on the alternative end of the scale. So
when you referenced it early that when he left his his professorship, he took 12,000 doses of LSD with him. When he was murdered and the police got there, how many were left?
6,000. There was one was full, one was empty, one was half full. Now there are some folks who will say, "Oh, that was gone before you came down there. It was just souvenirs." I don't think so.
No. Yeah. So and how long? And they moved there in 1977.
Beginning of 1977, right? January.
So that's basically a 5-year run. That's a lot of LSD in 5 years.
Yep.
6,000. That's a lot of doses. I wonder if he was selling it, some of it, to the motorcycle gang for money.
Well, the guy that I talked to said that was the case. Of course, I haven't ever talked to any of the motorcycle folks. Nobody's going to come forward and say, "Yeah, I was buying LSD." I will tell you that the LSD somehow mysteriously disappeared from the sheriff's department later. So
What?
Yeah. So
Boy, I gotta get some.
I heard that there was some really high grade stuff that was going around, sometime after the trials were over or whatever. So I can only speculate on that.
Speculation is what we podcast is all about. I'd have no gig if we couldn't just speculate.
One time Walker County Jail, they had one of the criminals managed to crawl through the ceiling over to the evidence room and then distributed the guns and drugs amongst the prisoners, destroyed the chain of evidence, not to mention you don't want to have a bunch of prisoners with a bunch of guns out there or whatever. But that really did happen while I was there.
Really?
So, Yep. So, some of these small town jails, you don't know what's going on.
My mom and dad just took a trip, and they got pictures of them in Mount Airy where they filmed Andy Griffith.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad's got a picture of him in the jail.
With the keys on the wall.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
everything else.
So the small town jails, the keys are on the wall, or you just crawl over like Breakfast Club. You're just walking your way across the tile thing to get to the evidence room.
They have a stand-up poster of Barney Fife back in the corner. That would have been good.
That would have. I probably did. I have to go through the pictures my mom sent me. All right, so they're living this life. They're interacting with whom they choose. Tell me about the murders. When did it? And then, of course, we'll talk longer and kind of revisit some of these topics again. But the murders themselves. When, how, and how did they transpire?
The murders occurred in December of 1982. And, like I said, it had been planned for a few weeks before that. There were, besides the two murderers, there were a couple of folks with them. Joey Wells, who was the cousin of Tony West, I think. And then Teresa Hudgens, who was
no
like
idea.
the totally innocent party. And she's like the 17-year-old girl. She had no idea where they were going. Now, Joey, I think that Kenneth and probably Tony, too, both implicated Joey Wells. But Joey always said, nope, had nothing to do with it or whatever. They didn't catch him with any merchandise or anything. The other two, confessed. And Joey Wells never did. He did wind up when I tried to find him before, I found him in jail up in Cleveland. So, he wound up not being necessarily on the straight and narrow path.
Right.
But yeah, he was never arrested with it, and they used his testimony some for it. And he's the one who brought Teresa along as a date, and she thought they were just going to visit these guys, drink some wine, and do some toodaloo, which was basically huffing glue, on the way up there.
Yeah.
Not while they were there, but in the car on the way up there. And yeah, boy, did she have a surprise.
Yeah, I've never heard of the toodaloo thing, so you just educate. Have you heard
really?
of toodaloo before? Okay, good.
Yeah, I don't think
I've
that.
heard of
I think
doing
that
the-
might have died out in the early '80s.
Yeah.
This might have been the last time
Then
it was
crack
ever
showed
used.
up in the
Oh,
mid
yeah.
'80s, and people were like, "Dude, what?"
You know what? Glue. You keep your glue.
That's it.
I'll trump you the crack over here. Okay, so they drove one car up there,
Yes.
and then all hiked in, or did the two stay in the car?
Now, I'm not sure if at the time there was driveway down to
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
so it's
Okay.
blocked now. That's why you have to hike through
Oh,
it now.
okay,
But there's
yeah, yeah.
trees across it and
Yeah.
whatnot,
So
yeah,
did
I
they
think
all
they
four
drove
get
down
out
to
and
there.
go in?
Yeah, yep, they all went in.
So how did the other two not get some sort of?
Well, I think they got a clue somewhere along the line there, but by that time, when you got a couple people with guns, you're not going to say, "Hey,
Yeah, they got the
not
guns.
my idea." That's right. Yeah.
All right, keep talking us through it. How did that? Where were they shot at? How did it go down and all that?
Okay. They were in the pink room, and Charles was great. I mean, he was almost a hypnotic speaker. He could talk people out of anything, because there were people who'd come over before with intent of beating the crap out of him, and he talked them out of it. They were getting along fine. They were friends by the end of it or whatever.
Wow.
And that kind of started this way. I think one of the guys pulls out his, climbs down, gets his rifle or whatever, comes back up with it. And Charles makes a joke out of it. Oh, you want to play? Yeah, let's play or whatever.
Yeah.
And it kind of diffused things for about 20 minutes from what I understand. But then he got, Kenneth got mad all over again or whatever, and ties him up. He goes down. Joey was down in the kitchen cleaning up dishes after supper, and the dogs were down there asleep. So the guy
Real quick. Okay, so I want to get down in the kitchen. Is that over
in the manor?
So
In the
two
manor,
separate
different buildings.
Okay.
Two different buildings.
Gotcha. All right.
So the guy goes down. He shoots Joey and the dogs. Dogs weren't doing anything, but I guess dogs that big, maybe he was a little afraid they might. Yeah. Because one of them they said was big enough on all fours to see into your car window. So that's a big dog.
That is.
Shoots them. Comes back up. Is demanding from Charles. where's the money? Where's the jewels? Where's the, where's everything? He's like, I don't have that. I don't have that or whatever. And they force him down. They tied him up, gagged him, and somehow they had, I think, his hands and feet tied, but somehow managed to get him down the ladder because that's how you get up to the pink room.
No, I didn't. I didn't know. I'm glad you told me that.
I
was assuming there were stairs.
It's a ladder on the outside of the building.
Of course there is. Why wouldn't there not be? Okay.
So manages to get him down there, and then when he sees Joey, he just loses it, and basically is like, this is it's not the exact words, but something along the lines of "this is all my fault," kind of thing.
Right.
And they wound up shooting him. Apparently, and this is the basis for the suit between Charles's family and Joey's family that came up later on about who really owned all the stuff. Apparently, Joey wasn't actually dead, even though he's lying there in a puddle of blood and looks dead. He moaned or something along the lines. And Charles was trying to get to him. They wound up shooting Charles as well. Went on to finish ransacking the house, got a bag full of nickels and dimes, a jewel-encrusted sword, and they stole the Jeep, which also had huge, 2 or 3 foot high inverted pentagrams on each side of it. So not exactly an inconspicuous getaway vehicle, but their car wouldn't start again. So that's why they did that. That's why they got the Jeep.
Did they take the drugs?
They didn't find them. They were in a desk drawer. They didn't find them.
I would have, of all the valuables in the house, that seems like the one thing. But they might have panicked, I guess. I don't know.
They had a lot of art there, and some of it was, all of it was a little bizarre. Some of it was, people would call it satanic. There's no
Ben Hamptons or Ansel Adams or none of that. We're not.
No.
Okay. None of that Thomas Kincaid stuff. Gotcha. Okay.
There's a statue of Mephistopheles, and I'm not sure. I know they said it was worth like $10,000, so it may have been an actual Gautier.
Wow.
It was a bronze statue, and they said, like I said, worth $10,000. Of course, they don't take that. There's several other pieces of art that would have been really valuable, but I mean, these are redneck, country folk, and that didn't have any clue about, they weren't educated or whatever, so they didn't know anything to take anything like that. They were looking for, that's right, they were looking for the cash. That's what they found was the nickels and dimes.
In the artwork, I read I'm not sure which article it was, just make sure prepared coming in today, and there was a story about, I think it may have been Charles. Mm-hmm. They bound and gagged him before they shot him. Mm-hmm. And at some point prior to, or it was realized afterwards, so they shot him multiple times in the head kill him. 5 times in the head. Mm-hmm. He had actually had a painting commissioned or had a dream about a painting. He painted it.
He painted it. Joey dreamed it. He painted it.
He painted it of the fact that he was gagged with bullet holes in his head.
5 bullet holes in his head and gagged in the painting. I have a replica of that painting in my ghost tour shop. Okay, yeah, I sure do. I was looking through here.
What?
It's in here someplace, but
I would insert creepy stuff now.
Right. Yeah, that he had done that.
On.
That was 2 years before he died. 2 years before he died. Yeah, so it was like predicting what would happen.
I would keep going back to sleep to try to read something better. That's what I'm like. Hey, look, I got to go back to bed.
I'm not doing something right.
This is not working.
Mm-hmm.
That is freaky.
Yeah, it's
so was that picture done and hanging there? I mean, had the picture been finished?
It was hanging on the wall. Yeah, like I said, he painted it 2 years before, but they had never seen that painting.
Right.
So I know it's in here someplace. I just don't know.
All right. So they shoot them both. They take a bunch of stuff. They do what real smart criminals do. They take the Jeep with the inverted pentagram. That's fantastic. How do they get caught? And again, we'll go back and ask some other questions. But how do they get caught? And how far down the road?
The Tony West getting caught is one of the most incredible stories I have ever heard. I've never heard of a man who tried so hard to get himself arrested. So Tony and Kenneth, they hit the road. They're going to go.
And Tony's the older one, right?
Tony's the older one. Going to go to Mexico, or maybe they're going to go out west, or maybe they don't really know.
Nichols will get
only
us
go
there.
so far. Yeah, yeah, and on the way, by the way, they did decide they needed another car, so they killed a Navy officer and took his car. So they were charged in Mississippi for that. But they go into a strip club, get into a fight, because they're getting on each other's nerves by this time. They're not, he's 17, he's 40-something, So Kenneth takes off. He eventually wound up heading back towards home, and I think called his mom from around Cartersville, something like that. it's never really come out, but I've gotten unofficially that they had wiretaps on the family's home, and that's how they got that information. I can't verify that for sure, but that's what I have been told. So they, police dispatched to where he was, and they arrested him fine. But then Tony decides it's getting close up on Christmas, decides he's lonely and he didn't have anybody to hang out with, so he's going to go head home. Mm-hmm. So he gets to Chattanooga, and it is pouring, and this is like Christmas Eve.
Okay.
Pouring down rain. I mean, cats and dogs, not just a little normal rain. It was pouring down. And his car dies. Now, one of the things about Corpsewood, the supposed curse or whatever, is a lot of times people have car issues. But Tony's car dies right across the line into Chattanooga. So he sees a bar there. What was it? Maybe Palomino Club, I think, one of the ones that was one of the ones that was right there, one of the notorious ones. And he decides he's going to go over to that. He gets soaked to the bone in the process.
Right.
He gets there, and outside hanging out there's a police officer. And so Tony decides it's a sign. They must be looking for him. So he goes up to the guy with his hands in front of him, says, "Okay, go ahead and arrest me." And the guy's like,
because they knew you were going to go to the Palomino Club.
That's how good we are at law enforcement, ladies and gentlemen.
Why are you even out of it, man? The criminals were just walking up to you.
Gave yourself up.
Why do you even need guns, you people? Keep going. This,
guy's like,
I disrespect this guy so much more now that I do this how policing works.
So this guy's like, "What are you talking about?" And he was like, "I'm the one that committed those murders." What murders? And he's like, "Well, look me up." So he looks it up on GCIC, doesn't find him, looks it up twice.
Google me.
Doesn't find
Don't you know what you're talking to?
Wait, what?
Exactly. So finally, he says, over there in Chattooga County. So finally, the police officer, it's Christmas Eve. He didn't want to be getting involved in something like that, but he calls the sheriff's office over there, and they're like, yeah, we're looking for that guy. So he says, okay, fine. So he takes the guy in his car, takes him to the police office in Rossville, Georgia. Right. Now, of course, I don't know if you've ever been there before. It is, some people have compared it to the Keystone Cops, at least back in the old days. So they have him, Tony's sitting in the lobby smoking a cigarette while they're waiting for somebody to come from Chattooga County Sheriff's Office. It is not exactly what you expect from a, serial killer, multi-murderer or whatever. Right. But yeah, so they get there and they decide, well, there might be a problem with extradition because he brought him across state lines. So they put him back in the police car. They drive him back across the line into Chattanooga, and they make him walk in the pouring rain back across the line into Georgia so they can say he gave himself up, voluntarily, and they didn't do it. I mean, like I said, I've never heard of anybody who went to so much effort to get themselves arrested.
I got a question. Is that, and I know it's 30, 40 years later. Is that typical, or would you just keep him and call him up and work it out legally, wouldn't you?
Nowadays, because everything you did is a matter of record now.
Right.
It's like we talked about. There's locators on your phone, your car, everything else. You can't sit there and go, well, yeah, we brought him across state lines, and then we took him back across state lines. So when he, air quotes, voluntarily came back across state. No, you're going to sit there and go, well, we drove him over here. It's a good faith error. The words are actually used in the law. It's a good faith error.
Okay,
it's
good.
Not, it's not fruit of a poisonous tree. Everything's okay.
All right, gotcha.
Want to see the picture?
Yeah, I do. I want to see the picture. Let me see this real quick. This one. Oh.
Now, I have a close-up of it in my shop. They wouldn't let me use that one in the book, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, he's gagged and everything.
Yep, gagged, 5 bullet holes.
That is freaky.
To the number.
Mm-hmm.
To the number. That is.
And in same
same
forehead, same
Golly.
places. Yeah.
Do we know what kind of gun they used? Do you know that at all?
There was a pistol and a rifle. I know one of them they got out of like Charles or Joey's dresser drawer or something like that. So it was one that they had there, and I think the rifle, I believe, they brought with them.
I was looking down here. There was a little gap there. They go on the run. They kill this Navy officer, which I did not know that part of the story. I had forgotten that part of the story. Mm-hmm. Did they just hijack? Did they just carjack him, or was it his house?
He was parked sleeping at a rest stop, and so they get up there and they woke him up first, I think, and then tell him they're going to march him out to the woods, and what was it? I think he took a swing at him or something, and then they shot him.
Shot him.
Out there.
Okay,
Yeah, so.
I didn't know if it was shooting.
I
or
think they
beating him.
handcuffed him to a tree first, but somehow he managed. He did something to
fought back.
resist, and they shot him.
As you should fight back.
And they took his car.
The last question, or not last question, one of the questions I had about this: how did the police find out they were dead? Because we got them on the run. Did it go by 3 days, 2 days, 2 hours? How did they get notified that there's 2 dead bodies in the manor castle?
One of their friends came over. He had been there like the morning that they died. And this is another really freaky thing.
Okay. By the way, please feel free to add freaky things in for the next 15 minutes so you have to leave. I mean, that's...
I figured you'd be okay with that.
Yeah. We haven't got freaky yet, so I'm really concerned.
So from the very beginning, when I first started writing the book, I wanted the first thing in here to be a quote from Tiger, by William Blake, because Blake was, he claimed to be a Christian, but the stuff that he said in his poetry and whatnot, total Church of Satan kind of stuff, even though he was a long time ago. Then somebody else said, "Oh, you ought to try and get something from Hosier from Take Me to Church." Couldn't get Hosier's permission, but William Blake's long dead, so I was able to use his. But I moved it to the middle when I thought I'd put the song in the beginning. So, but it was the very first thing I ever wrote in the whole book was that quote. Then after I've turned in my first draft, I'm watching on TV this special from this Looney Tune, church lady that she'd done right after the murders had happened, and she's really playing up any bad angles or what. She's making up all kinds of stuff. But one of the things she said, she plays this tape, and it's Charles, the morning of his death, reciting the very lines that I had written, from Tiger. And I was like, oh, no way. I just freaked me out, right? So I hunted that down to find out, and it turned out this guy, the one who discovered their bodies, had come over there. Charles had a golden harp that he played, and he was playing it while he was reciting this, and the guy had recorded it, apparently. So the same guy came back, a couple days later, when he hadn't heard anything from him or whatever, saw the broken window on the front door, and goes in and he finds the bodies. And so that's when
there was a couple of days. They had a running head start when I was getting in. I was trying to figure out how much.
Yeah, at least a day. I don't remember exactly what it was, but at least a day or two. The other thing was they didn't know anything about the guys. They just knew these guys had been murdered. They didn't know how it was. Teresa Hudgens, they held her for a week. She's how they actually found out about what happened, because they held her for a week. Joey Wells was supposed to be her date, Tony West's family. So the family kind of kept her, with them for a week. And then when she got back to her family, she told them, they're like, you got to call the police. So that's how they found out what actually happened.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's freaky. The words that you were thinking of
I'd already written them.
Yeah.
It was wild.
How high is your electric bill? Because, you obviously sleep with every single light on in your house. That's like 24 hours a day.
I don't know.
I was just curious.
I'm sending you a bag of crosses is what I'm doing.
And some big dogs, some security.
Some holy water.
A shit ton of Ring doorbells. Whatever you want, we'll try and make it happen.
You'll hear the doorbell, but there'll be no one on the camera. You'll be like,
I own the ghost tour. I worked with the VA's office before. These guys aren't scary to me. The victims here, I would have liked to have known them.
Well, stand by. They may show up the way you keep talking.
I was going to say, if they show up in here, though, I got to be on. You know what? I'm not inviting that. That is on Amy. I don't want any piece of that.
we tell people do not. The only time we ever had somebody that said they took home a souvenir ghost from the ghost tour was because they asked it to come home with them. And I always tell people, do not do that. No, and not the only thing. This isn't from the tour. This is from the ghost hunt.
Don't
where we use
equipment. You're throwing ghost at me with that finger. Stop it.
This is from the ghost hunt where we use equipment or whatever. But the people were my daughter's best friend's parents, so they were people I knew. And they thought it was, they think ghosts are really cool. So they invited to go home with them. And they were actually delighted for the first 6 months. They told me it was a teenage boy ghost who hung out in their garage and played pranks. I don't know how they knew it was a teenage boy, but after
he didn't clean up his room.
After
smart ass all the time.
That's probably what it was.
After a year, they moved. But the really wild thing was we used to have a ghost that on the Ovilus piece of equipment that we had that talks used to always ask for candy. After those people came, never heard it again. So we figured that's who went home with them until sometime after they moved, we started hearing that again.
You know what's really weird? I'm a Christian. And whenever I have this conversation about spirits or ghosts or demons, they're called a bunch of different things, right? I'm always amazed how people go, "Oh, I just don't believe in that." I went, but I believe in the Holy Spirit. I don't understand why one set of spirits can be real, and if I think that, and the other set can't be.
And we believe in souls, right? You know, I mean, something's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people do believe that you have something that's going to be somewhere after you die.
I mean, that's what I'm banking on. That's
Right.
how I'm building my life.
Right.
All right. So let me ask you a couple more quick questions, and then chime in if you've got anything along the way. First of all, they both get arrested. Mm-hmm. Anything interesting pop up in the trial? Anything come out in the trial? Any weird? Okay.
Okay, so Tony confesses 8 times, right?
That
Says
dude.
nothing.
This job's really hard when you have these kind of cases.
Says
Straight face.
says nothing about LSD until the police had somehow the LSD that they found got buried in a drawer someplace and never got mentioned until Ralph Van Pelt, who was the prosecutor, said, "We got to tell them, you know, otherwise they could get it reversed because we didn't reveal some exculpatory evidence or whatever."
Right.
So they told him, but suddenly Tony, who has never said anything about LSD, suddenly comes up with this whole story about how, he was hallucinating and he thought the dogs were lions and that's why he shot them, and the trees were glowing and things were floating and just, you know, all kinds of, and they asked him in the trial, they said, did you read up about LSD while you were in jail? Oh yeah. So
Dude's IQ. You're talking about a background check on a gun. They should have that in place with that guy, for the love of Pete.
Yeah.
Anything else come up at the trial? Anything else weird? Facts you didn't know about as you were reading, or it was.
Well, the transcript's about 3 folders thick, so there's
Not that
there's
much,
there's a lot of stuff in there, and the whole story is wild. But
oh my gosh, are you kidding me? It's crazy. And so, in the interview, how many people did you interview to write this book?
I talked to over 40 folks. A lot of law enforcement folks, because I knew them because I used to be in the DA's office, some of the people who knew the victims. I wrote to both of the murderers. I heard back from Kenneth. He sent me a letter. I think the reason he wrote me back, because a lot of times he didn't write other people back, but he knew I was a lawyer and he thought I was going to help him out. And I never told him that, and that was definitely not going to happen.
Are they still alive? Are they both still alive?
Tony recently died, and Kenneth is still in jail.
How old is Kenneth now at this point? Do you know?
Let's see. Happened in 82. He was 17 then. So,
okay. So
whatever that comes
he's
up
not
to.
that much older than me. Okay. He's in his late 50s, early 60s then.
Probably, yeah.
All right. So the writing process, and if you got questions, jump in, but the writing process. Mm-hmm. When you set off to write a book like this, I'm always intrigued on how we had Murray Nicely in about his book about Hoffa, and everybody has a different process. Some people sit down and they just hammer out. Mm-hmm. Did you find it easy to write, or was it hard to put what goes first, where, and timeline this thing?
This was easy and really fun to write. Now, I had already written Haunted Chattanooga, so
Right.
I already had some experience with the writing process. But I knew this case. I'd been hearing about it, like I said, from when I was in the DA's office, since I started there in 86. And then, when I started the ghost tour, started hearing about it from an entirely different angle. So I was real familiar with everything. So it was just a matter of, I divided into chapters, how, the life in Trion, the murderers, the killers, the victims, that sort of thing.
Right.
So once I got it divided out into the kind of chapters that I wanted, it was easy to write. It was, I spent a lot of time. I spent a lot of time at the courthaus going through records, that kind of thing, going through the evidence, whatnot. But,
How long did it take
I
you to write
enjoyed
the
it.
book?
Maybe a year.
That's a lot of your life, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
good
I mean,
chunk.
it wasn't the only thing that I had going on,
Yeah.
but I did spend a ton of time doing it. So
Have you written another book since?
I have. The folks at History, all my books so far have been written for History Press, which is now Arcadia. And the folks there had asked me a couple years back to do a children's version of Haunted Chattanooga. So that was the last book that I write. I have about 5 different books running around in my head, one of which is kind of beyond Corpsewood. So I'm gonna get.
No. You don't get to give me that little sly look beyond Corpsewood. Like there's not. What does that even mean? What does that? You don't have to give me the gist. I mean the whole thing.
Okay. So History Press, after I turned my draft in, it got bought out by Arcadia. I had a great editor with History Press. The guy with Arcadia, he just sucked.
Okay.
And he told me, because I had a lot of stuff Trion, Georgia, besides this Corpsewood case, they had Judy Neely, the youngest woman ever sentenced to death, in the country ever. They had this other fellow whose name I can't remember, but who had basically never been in trouble before, just like Kenneth. Kenneth in this story, never been in trouble before. Judith had never been in trouble before. All this stuff happens when they hit Trion. He's coming down. He's about 400 pounds. Comes with his 92-pound girlfriend down from Ohio or something. They were heading to Florida, but he was getting directions from the voices in his head, which is how they wound up in Trion.
Yeah,
and there's film of them going to this convenience store, getting something to drink, goes back out to the gravel lot right next to the convenience store, cuts off one arm, one leg, cuts her heart out, and when they interviewed him, he pulls something out of his pocket and starts chewing on it. It was her esophagus. I mean, it's just to have that, and also these the bodies here were sent to Tri-State Crematory. So for this town of 1,700 people to have this many bizarre things, there's something going on with that town. So that's kind of what Beyond Corpsewood has to do with.
I hope everybody knows the subtle.
Because the new
Did you hear David's response? He said he went to the crematory and he goes, "Oh, so it's still there because of the."
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
But the editor.
Inappropriate drum roll here, please.
Yeah. Editor made me take all that stuff about the other stuff out. So I want to do my own book, not for History Press, but just my own book that tells all that stuff. Because
that is for a small town.
I'd had people read this before, and they said, "Well, Judith Neely, that was my favorite part of the book." So,
well, that was the question I was going to ask you. Was so there some presumptions in my question. So if I'm wrong, slap me back to center, please. So you are looking at a city that is in presumptively conservative South.
Right. Absolutely.
Heavy church-going Christian South. Small community, tight-knit, generational community. Probably very similar in a lot of demographics. What was the community saying about this? I mean, and again, this is a presumptive of you have had two, from the statements, homosexual satanic worshipers murdered
with drugs
from the north. So all of it was some of the public sentiment.
Most of the people didn't know about them before they got murdered. It made international news when it happened. There were helicopters from some European tabloid flying above overhead. They said it spread some of the ashes around there. But so then the community, of course, they're like fascinated. Really, that's the way to put it.
So it's more
they're all wanting to pile in. The sheriff's office is roping things off so that they can't. But that's why you may have heard before. A lot of people took a lot of souvenirs from Corpsewood. Yeah, and then that's how the rumor about the curse of taking anything from Corpsewood. A lot of things got brought back.
Do you have stories about that you could share on another podcast or in the book? I bet there's stories.
Yeah, I talk about them some in the book.
In that book, okay,
yeah. A lot of bricks that have been brought back. A lot of bushes that people took and burned them later. Yeah, so.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I was just really curious because it's such a small community with that much impact, how much it actually changed things in Trion. Did people move
I don't
there?
think it changed.
It didn't change anything.
I think it's still the same kind of town it always was.
It was a fireworks show that was a fireworks show, and then once it was over with, it was kind of over with, to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so have you ever read Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil? You know how Savannah was the same kind of small town. Well, we have our people, and they're our people, and we're going to talk about them if we want to, but you're not allowed to.
You're not allowed to say anything.
And it's just kind of, it's the town, and that's how we are. And,
I want to make a note that we just sailed right by at the speed of podcast of the big dude that cut girl up and was chewing on her esophagus. We never stopped and talked about that one. That's going to have to be a different story at some point in time because is that a podcast worthy story?
Oh yeah, Hayward Bissell is his name.
Can we get you back in a couple of weeks?
Love to.
I want to know about that freak.
I can bring friends. We can share those kinds of stories.
That's a freaky story. Of all the freaky stories you've told, this is a freaky story. But that's a freaky story. Have you heard of that before?
Previous law enforcement, Chattanooga, my understanding is they went in to arrest a guy that had either committed homicide or an assault or whatever else. And when they went in, he had actually castrated himself and was frying the stuff on the stove when they went into the house.
Yeah, okay.
So we can find those stories if you really want.
I don't know if it's a want to, but it's that's the part of the human brain that just is intriguing. To your point, whether it's trying or not, as a human, that has some sense of boundaries. When you hear these type of things, it's so shocking.
Yep.
You want to stop from a safe distance and watch the fireworks and hear about it and learn about it. And I know you got to go. I know. Do you have another 5 or 10 minutes for me? Right behind you. It's 3:41.
Yeah, I'm good. I just got to be out of here by 4.
Oh, okay. We're good then. Okay, fine. I was trying to get you out of here in the next 5 minutes because I
No, because you're close to where I need to be.
Okay, good. I'm trying to think if there's any other questions about the Corpsewood murders. I asked you about the trial, and I asked you if they've passed away or if they've not passed away. Have you been down there personally? I know you probably have. Yeah, walked and
to the Corpsewood. Yes, yeah, I've been on that property. Yeah.
Now here's a question: have you taken anything?
I never would. I would not do that.
Did you feel weird?
Well, I took some of my ghost hunting equipment, and I got some interesting things, like some of the things that got said. Some stuff like about dogs run, a lot of things that would have been associated with this kind of kind of case. But no, I felt it was a very peaceful place.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I had a theory that the stupid editor made me take out of here too about what all happened. But there's a reason that the beginning of this book talks about Howard Fenster. I had set it up as kind of a parallel. He had Paradise Gardens there. He, voice from God told him to paint, so many paintings, and I never heard the exact number, but then you have Corpsewood Manor, where some people will claim that he invoked a demon to guard his property or whatever.
Right.
But
didn't do a great job, by the way.
But all this weird stuff stopped happening right after Howard died, which presumably was after he reached his tens of thousands of whatever paintings that he was supposed to do. So my idea is that was Howard's thing, because he was doing God's work there, and he got it completed, and then all the crazy stuff there stopped happening.
Wow. Okay, so then we're going to get, I promised you, I'm going to ask you, and if do you have any more questions about Corpsewood to get some stuff? First of all, where are you from originally?
I'm from Atlanta originally.
Okay, I was so hoping you say Trion. That'd be so good if it was Trion. Holy crap,
I'm from Tucker.
Okay, and what got you into law enforcement, and then what took you from law enforcement into ghost and this stuff?
Getting a job was, I got a job with the DA's office up here. Red Lominick hired me, and he is a heck of a character. You know, when I wrote this Corpsewood book, I tried to do it kind of like Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil with a lot of the gossipy insider stuff, and boy, Red is quite a subject for that. Okay. But so that's how I came up here. Then Chris Townley hired me, and I practiced with him for 20 years. But when I was about tired of law takes a lot of your life. And I had always wondered, me and my kids had always wondered, how come Chattanooga didn't have a ghost tour? Because it's such a tourist city. We like taking them other places. So I decided, well, I would just, I'd do some research, see if there was enough ghosts to make it worth it. And turns out there's an abundance. So that's how I got started with the ghost tour. And then the History Press folks are the ones who came to me and asked me to co-author Haunted Chattanooga. I'd always wanted to write a book, but I never knew how. So, when you have the publishing company coming to you saying, all you got to do is write, we're going to handle the rest of the stuff.
I'm all in.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So that's how that came about.
Are you a recorder or writer?
Writer.
I've got a friend that records and then transcribes.
No. Yeah, okay. But I do it on a computer. It really hurts my hand to handwrite, so everything's typed.
Okay. I told you I was going to ask this question about Chattanooga. And you have some stories that, well, not ghost stories, but like the story you shared about the floating baby, the water treatment plant. So, first of all, I want to know from you the most haunted places in Chattanooga that are legit places, and because I know there's. And then I want to ask you, sir, you weren't expecting this. Have you encountered anything like she says, any place around as you're going through your law enforcement career? Start with you, young lady. Where are the haunted places in Chattanooga? I only know of one.
Well, where we do, we do our cemetery ghost hunt through UTC's campus and down to Citizen Cemetery, which actually there's 4 attached cemetery. There's Pauper Cemetery, Citizen Cemetery, Confederate Cemetery, and then the Jewish Cemetery is the only one that's still active, so we don't go into that one. But why we do the ghost hunt there is because there are so many active ghosts there.
Okay.
Raccoon Mountain Caverns, that's how I first heard about the equipment for the ghost hunt. They took me on a private ghost hunt through there. They won't tell you about their ghost unless you ask them because they don't want to scare off their guests. But they have nice ghosts. It was legit. You can research. There was a huge fire there caused by the night guardsman falling asleep with a cigar in his hand, and he's the one who haunts that area. People have seen him. He's done stuff there. They smell cigar smoke, that kind of thing.
So is the Reed House? Is it?
Oh
haunted?
yeah.
Okay.
That is absolutely a legit haunting. They've had a lot of weird things that have happened there. I've had people call me up that didn't even know it was supposed to be haunted, saying, "Hey, I stayed there and this weird stuff happened. Is it supposed to be haunted?" Yes, it is.
How about underground Chattanooga?
Yes, underground Chattanooga, definitely very haunted. We did not know for the first 4 years we were doing the ghost tour that there actually used to be a undertakers at that spot. But that makes sense for why we get some of the ghosts that we got that actually even look like John Franklin, and sometimes people see things of horses. Whether there's actually animal ghost or not, I can tell you that they've gotten pictures that look like horses back there, and the hearses used to be horse-drawn that they kept back there. Yeah, so.
Have you had any experiences? Seriously, if you have, are they just weird experiences? Because you guys deal so much in reality. The real reality is scary enough for what you guys and girls do.
Dude, it's going to be like unconfirmed intuition, second or so. I mean, we all grew up native Chattanooga, and we heard the stories. Reed House, there was the one of the little girl that was in the basement of Ruby Tuesdays over on Raynard Road. We heard those stories for years growing up. So, obviously we never confirmed one because ghosts slip handcuffs, so you can't really get confirmation as a ghost. It's like, come on, buddy, it's not as easy as you think.
They don't walk up like that other guy.
They're just
hey,
like, please take me to jail, and then they fly off.
Yeah.
But there are times where, especially if you've done the job long enough, you get a feeling about something. And so most of those times, those feelings would be like if you're searching a building like for a burglar. Multiple times when you're in a space and you are 100% certain somebody's in that building, and then you don't find anybody. Because oftentimes if you listen to that intuition, I can still remember searching a house one time. This is against the rules. All the cops on here are going to say I did it wrong, even though some of them have done it too.
Yeah.
You end up having to search something by yourself because there's no backup.
Right.
They're either way away or they don't know where you're at or what's going on. So I ended up having to search a house one night by myself, literally about to go into the bathroom of the house, and something just told me to stop. There was no noise, nothing moved, there wasn't anything weird. Something just told me to stop and not go into the bathroom. So I ended up just giving a verbal command. I was like, hey, I know you're in here, come out. I had 4 guys come out of the bathtub. They were hiding behind the shower curtain. And I would have walked into that bathroom, and there'd been me against 4 people in a bathroom.
Oh, my goodness.
So that intuition just tells you at certain times, hey, slow down and listen to it. Well, if it's that right in those moments, and then there's other times where you go in and search places, and you're like, something doesn't feel right, and then you find nothing, you're like, hey, I didn't get balanced on that one. I'm not quite sure what just happened. So to that point of, I can't say yes, but I can't say I never had one of those moments where you come out of the call and you're like, okay, none of that made any sense.
You heard about the suicide bride in Patton Chapel before. That's been a story around for decades, long before we ever started the ghost tour.
Uh-oh. She's showing me something on her phone for audio.
Is that a selfie with her and the actual ghost? Because that
I'm
would
not
be
in that
phenomenal.
one.
Okay. I was about to say, that's pretty definitive.
But
that would be kind of cool.
a guest of
Where's
ours
that
took
at?
that.
Is this it?
Yeah, that's it. A guest of ours took that. And when I first saw it, I thought, I thought she'd fake something. So I went on her Facebook page without her knowing, and she was like, "I just can't believe this is real. I'm going to go back there and try to take that picture again because this is just too, And she wouldn't have been saying that stuff if she'd faked it,
Yeah, that is crazy. So for our listeners, it's an apparition of looks like somebody in white, and it looks like they're walking with their arms back.
Yeah, it looks like a bride,
It looks like a bride walking down, walking in the middle of the hallway there, or down by the pews.
That's on our Facebook page if anybody
that's
wants
creepy.
to check it out. Yeah.
So everybody that's ever gotten married in Patton Chapel, if they did not disclose that before you signed the contract,
Slide out to
just saying, it's a conversation.
You might get a refund. You too might be.
I'd like a ghost discount.
Compensation lawyer.
I'd like the crap scared out of me discount. Could you give me that?
So I'm trying to think if there was one other question I had for you about the most haunted places. There's one Jeff Styles always talks about, Marina.
Hell's Bar Marina. Yeah. I've talked to Jeff about that place
Jeff
before.
actually had a legitimate experience up there. Like heard, saw, felt a legitimate entity.
He did.
It's a
You
legit.
sure that's not the LSD?
I'm not sure at all. I am not. This is back in Jeff's day.
It was funny. I'd talked to Jeff shortly after he'd been out there, and I was talking about the ghost at Hell's Bar, and I told him, oh yeah, there's this one guy, and he's dressed like in 30s, 40s, outfit or whatever, and he just like went silent for a minute. He was like, I saw that when I was out there like just a couple weeks ago.
There was a storm or something.
Right, there was a big storm, and he saw exactly the thing I had just described.
And you ought to hear Jeff tell the story. It is creepy. All right, we're going to end it because we got 10 minutes left.
Okay.
I just want to say, and we're going to make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of if they can buy the book and if they want to take a tour for the Chattanooga Ghost Tours. But
okay.
Would you mind, even though it's not a ghost story, I think she would appreciate the creepy baby story, the baby clothes story.
So for those listeners who've already heard it once,
Yeah. It's been a while.
We'll do it again. So in patrol on midnight shift, we used to always try to find a place where we could go park that was secure. No one could get into where we were without us seeing them, so you could just relax, write your reports, hang out for a minute. And cops on third shift are really good at finding those places, especially in the winter. Call loads slower, so we would go looking. Well, we found an old abandoned, like a water treatment section over in another part of the city, and I don't disclose now because I don't need a bunch of people trying to find it. And we would go in there, park our cars, do, like I said, catch up on reports. Well, in one of the buildings, when we first found the property, the first thing we would always do is we're going to go clear everything, see what we've got, what we're dealing with, what's next to us. We go down into it, and this was an older subterranean building, so there were several floors that went down into the water. Well, the area that was upstairs that was still dry, we found a makeshift altar, candles burned, pentagrams, the whole 9 yards drawn on the walls and everything else. So we figured, well, it's kids, it's whatever. That doesn't make us nervous. We can deal with that. And if we're here, they're not showing up.
We can deal with
there's like
a pentagram and
there's
an altar.
just whatever. So we're fine with that. So there's like 8 or 10 cops in there. There's not like, excuse me, y'all need to leave. We've got to worship Satan. Be like, no, you need to put your hands behind your back. So we'd have won that one.
Yeah.
And so we didn't really think anything about it. Well, then we went farther down into the structure, and there was a metal circular staircase that went around the perimeter of the wall that went down, and it was flooded. So you could see, with powerful enough flashlights, you could see multiple levels of stairs still going down into the water. So that was just uber creepy to begin with. And we're all sitting on those stairs, we're shining our lights around, and all of a sudden we look in the water, and floating on the top of the water in an old abandoned water treatment plant that nobody should be around, there's a set of baby clothes floating in the water.
Oh, God.
So there's like eight of us. I mean, these are full-grown,
and you just
fully
saw the
armed men.
altar.
And we were all like, all right, we're done. We're out. That's it. Get your stuff. I don't even care if you can keep up with me. I'm gone. You know that whole thing, leave no man behind?
Yeah.
It's your ass. I'm gone. So
I don't have to run fast, just faster than you.
We'll find another place.
Absolutely.
And to that point, the thing that got even creepier, and this is a follow-up story to that, so we still hung out there. We didn't think else about it. We got over that. We didn't go in there again, but we still hung out. Well, one of our shift mates thought that it would be an interesting idea to take a girl up there for like a date one night.
Yeah, because girls love that.
Rick, if you're listening to me, I'm talking to you right
Us
now.
dudes are so smart.
So Rick goes up there, and he's driving around with the girl in his Bronco 2, and all of a sudden he passes over this one area headed back towards the thing, and he gets on this hump. Boom. Truck dies. Solid dead. Just right in the middle of driving, in drive. Not that he put it in park, shut it off, wouldn't turn back on. It was just dead. So he gets it in park. He's trying, and can't get it started back up. So he's also owns a few guns. So he's literally like getting shotguns out of the back. He's like handing her a gun. If anything happens, save one bullet for yourself if this goes bad kind of speech. And I'm sure the poor girl was like, this is the weirdest date ever. I'm never dating a cop again.
Yeah.
And so he's getting everything. All of a sudden he tries it again, fires right back up, throws everything in the thing, and just hauls out of there. Gets out of there, and then tells us the story when he comes back to work in another night or two. That was the end of that. We're like, all right, we're done. Not going back there. Don't need any reason.
Have you been back since?
No.
Yeah,
No.
I want to know where it's from at when we're off there. I want to go.
You want to go check it
I
out.
want to go see. That's just me.
That was the follow-up period to that whole thing, was Rick going back up there to his truck.
That's creepy stuff, man.
It is.
And there's a fine line between creepy and go. It's just this weird is so much of what we can't see. Life's like an iceberg. What we see is just the tip of it. We don't have a clue what it's really going on. Do me a huge favor. Tell everybody how to find out more about the book and the ghost tours. Wherever you want to send them, please do so.
Okay. The name of the book is Corpsewood Manor Murders in North Georgia. You can find it pretty much any place they sell books, whether, online at Walmart.com or Amazon or even iTunes or Google Play. And we also sell autographed copies in the ghost tour shop. Haunted Chattanooga is my other book, and then Ghostly Tales of Chattanooga is the children's version. Again, you can find those any place. And the ghost tour, just look at ChattanoogaGhostTours.com. We are right behind Taziki's downtown at 57 East 5th Street.
And they can get on a tour there and schedule.
Yeah, they can book it online and come there. And we have an awesome gift shop there too. Really creepy.
Fantastic. Anything else, David Roddy?
Good. I love when things are described as really good, really creepy. So, happy Halloween.
Bye, everybody.
See you.
Bye.